Right now, I can tell you I have about 6 or 7 accordions on my bench to repair, and I thought maybe I'll get like 1 or 2 like a month. No, it's a lot more than that.
He thinks 6 accordions on his workbench is a lot. I've had them where they're piled up in my shop where I could hardly even walk into my shop. You know, I was servicing the entire country, and I was working at the laboratory in medium energy particle physics, so I'd get up in the morning and I'd repair accordions in the morning, then I'd go to work, and then I'd come back at night and I'd repair accordions till I fell asleep, and then every day it was the same thing. I mean, it was at one time, that place was driving me crazy.
Bienvenidos. This is Encounter Culture from the New Mexico Department of Cultural Affairs. I'm your host and editor of El Palacio magazine, Emily Withnall. Accordions were a part of the musical fabric around me in Las Vegas, New Mexico as I was growing up. Antonia Apodaca, accordion player extraordinaire from Rociada, was a local legend. And of course, no rendition of Cielito Lindo, whether performed at Robertson High School or on the plaza for the 4th of July fiestas, was complete without the rich sounds emanating from an accordion. The presence of the accordion in música norteña is due to an intercultural mingling. In the 1800s, Polish, German, and Czech railroad workers brought their polkas and waltzes with them, and some instruments too, most notably the accordion. These musical traditions blended with Mexican instruments and the corridos and storytelling traditions so integral to Mexico, leading to the distinct sounds of música norteña so beloved in New Mexico and across the Southwest. For this reason, I was delighted when Amy Mills, the director of the New Mexico Arts Folk Arts Apprenticeship program, told me I should get in touch with Tony Tomei and Antonio Maestas. The two men completed the program in 2024 for accordion restoration and traditional New Mexico tunings. As you will hear, they brought 2 of Tony's accordions into the studio. The piano accordion Tony played during our conversation was one he custom designed, from the rhinestones on the exterior to the reeds on the interior, and had made in Italy. Tony and Antonio are just one pair of the 270 master-apprentice pairs who have gone through the Folk Arts Apprenticeship program since it began in 1990. The program is designed to provide funding to a master artist who can pass their craft on to an apprentice to keep the art form alive. The possibilities for what artists can work on together are vast, from colcha embroidery, African drumming, Zuni lullabies, flamenco, adobe building, and more. Check out our show notes for a link to a previous Encounter Culture episode where we talked to 2 bootmakers who also went through the program. And check out our show notes for a link to the Folk Arts Apprenticeship Program website where you can learn more about how to apply. And if you want to see Tony and Antonio playing, check out the New Mexico Department of Cultural Affairs YouTube channel at New Mexico Culture. Antonio and Tony, welcome to Encounter Culture. I'm so excited to have you both here. Before we dive into the world of accordion playing and accordion repair, I'd love to have you introduce yourselves to the listeners.
I'm Tony Tomei. I live in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and I've been in and around accordions for around 50 years, playing and repairing, and still enjoy it as much today as I did on day one.
My name is Antonio. I am from Chilili, New Mexico, and I've been in the music scene here locally since I was younger. Recently kind of got into accordions over the last 6 to 8 years, and was able to spend a lot of time with Tony learning how to repair accordions and a little bit more about that.
Whole
scene there. Yeah.
So I actually found out about both of you from Amy Mills, who directs the New Mexico Folk Arts Master Apprenticeship Program. And I was fascinated because even though I have heard, New Mexico style music with the accordion and stuff, I don't personally know any accordion players. I know lots of, piano players and guitar players and things like that. So I'm curious if each of you can talk about when you first encountered the accordion and what drew you to it and what makes it so unique.
I'll let you kick that one off, Tony.
Okay. Well, I grew up in a small town in southwestern Pennsylvania, Mount Pleasant, about 30 miles outside of Pittsburgh. A very ethnic community with Italians and Hungarians and Polish, and we all had our own segments of town that we lived in and our own churches that we went to. And I grew up in the 50s, and back in the 50s, the instrument was the accordion.
Oh, wow.
And that was before the Beatles came in the 60s and basically wreaked havoc with the accordion, and everybody switched over to the guitars.
Okay.
And so I was in and around accordion music at a very, very young age. Used to go to a place called Fedore's Grove in the summertime where they had bands come in from all over, like Chicago. We'd get bands from there, and it was an open pavilion and dance floor. And one group was called Little Wally and the Chicago Jumping Jacks, and they would play, and people would polka and waltz all night long. And around the outside of the pavilion were the Polish ladies with their aprons just soaked in grease and making Polish sausage and kielbasa, and I can't tell you how much fun it was. So that was kind of the earliest exposure to accordions.
Can you say a little bit more about how the Beatles wreaked havoc on the accordion, and also like why didn't you follow that trend towards the guitar? What made you stick with the accordion?
Well, it was the thing to do back then. I mean, especially the young girls would just scream and lose their minds over the Beatles. I don't understand. Even the Beatles would complain that they could barely hear themselves. All they would hear is screaming during their performances. So it was like a mania that went on, and called the British Invasion.
Yeah.
And it was the right time and place for it. I mean, that's
Right.
all I can answer.
Yeah.
But some of us, kind of a traditionalist person, and
Yeah.
amplifying anything is not to my tastes. I mean, it's okay when you need it,
Mm-hmm.
but basically I like acoustic instruments.
And you said you grew up in a community where accordion was everywhere. Did you also have family members who played it?
No, I was the only one. They actually started me off on the piano,
Okay.
and I started taking piano lessons at a young age, and gradually later on slipped into a little bit of accordion. And then it died off for many years. I played it for a while. When I left to go to college, I didn't play it for quite a few years. And then in college, down in Socorro at New Mexico Tech, I was walking by the gymnasium one night, and I heard this beautiful music coming out of the gymnasium. And I thought, I never heard anything like that before. And it was international folk dancing and folk music. So they had music from Eastern Europe, Slovenia, Macedonia, Hungary, Italy, Bulgaria. So I went in and I started folk dancing. But a lot of the songs used what instrument?
Accordion.
The accordion. Yeah, so got that right. Yeah. So I thought, well, I can play some of that. So I went to a pawn shop, bought myself a used accordion, and
Oh, wow.
And then the next thing I knew, within a couple of years, I had like 4 accordions, and then I had 10 accordions. And recently, close to 200 accordions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, most of which now are in Antonio's possession.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have more questions about that later. Antonio, what drew you to accordion?
Well, for me, I started out in music playing guitar and trumpet. And I also come from a family that you would consider very musical, but I'm the only musician in my family. So I grew up around environments where we're listening to traditional New Mexican music with my grandparents, with my mom, an extended family. And I had always heard stories about my great-grandfather. His name was Elogio Barella, and he was an accordion player. He passed shortly before I was born. He would go to family functions and he would play the accordion. He was a singer-songwriter. It was actually he and his brother who had a band. And my family had always been enamored with the accordion. It was one of the instruments that I had always loved and enjoyed when I was a kid. But to me, it was one of those ones that was very difficult at that time. I didn't know, how to start playing it. I didn't even know where to go with it. And so I had been such a big fan of cumbia, the genre of cumbia, which is kind of where Tony and I differ in our playing styles. and had really enjoyed artists like Celso Piña from Mexico, Aniceto Molina from Colombia, and a few other cumbia accordion players. And shortly before COVID and right around COVID, I really started to kind of take it seriously and want to learn how to play that style, and bought a cheap accordion, didn't know what I was doing, and bought a real kind of high-end accordion after that, one that's typically used in cumbia and vallenato music, and started to learn how to play. And that's actually kind of where Tony and I met.
It sounds like you have a lot of accordions now, if you have most of them.
I was laughing a little bit in my head when Tony was saying that it started out with one accordion and then it became 4, because that's exactly what it was for me. It started out with one accordion, then it became 4, and then it became 200 through Tony. So we had a very similar track there into getting into it. Yeah.
There's more similarities than that.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
One we just discovered, about a month ago?
When we were doing the interview for
Mexico Magazine.
For New Mexico Magazine, yeah.
Yeah, it turns out that accordions were patented May 6th of 1829 in Vienna, Austria, by the guy named Cyril Damian. And then a month later, on June 19th, Wheatstone patented the concertina in England. My birthday's May 6th, and when is your birthday?
June 19th.
Oh, wow.
We're both of the Tony variation in the name.
Yeah.
I think our middle name is very similar as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Initials, yeah.
That's amazing. And I want to talk about how you met and got involved in this program, but I know, Tony, because Amy told me, that you first were a part of the New Mexico Arts Apprenticeship program in 1994, right?
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about that before we get into your story together?
Yeah, sure. There was a guy named, I believe Claude Stevens was his name, and he was head of the program at that time. And my mentor, my teacher, lived in Western Pennsylvania, about 20 miles from where I grew up. His name's Mario Mosti. He's gone now. And I went back to visit my folks. And of course, when I was growing up, accordions were everywhere. And I said, well, I like to go look at some accordions. And people were looking at me like, this was in the 60s. It's like, nobody does accordions anymore. Everybody does guitars. And then somebody said at a music store, there's this old guy that lives in Jeanette, and I think he still does it. So I looked him up, went to visit him, and the minute I walked in and we met each other, it was just like we fit like a glove. Our personalities, our outlook, the nicest man I've ever met, kind-hearted, helped everybody out, and a real master at his craft of repairing, but also a master player. He, at one point in his career early on, he was playing in California for movie soundtracks and missed his home, came back home, and basically stayed there till the end of his life. His dad was an accordion teacher, not a repairman, but an accordion teacher, and a very stern, old-fashioned time Italian. And so he put Mario onto playing the accordion when he was like 3 or 4. And at age 6, Mario was winning different accolades at different accordion contests. And one of the stories that I remember about Mario is that I brought some music back to him. I'd go back and visit often as I could. And I brought some music back for him to play, some sheet music. And he thumbed through and he goes, well, I don't know any of these. So you'll have to turn the pages for me when I'm playing it. And I said, sure, so no problem. So he gets the accordion on and I got my fingers, I'm like really nervous. I got my fingers on the top of the page so that when he says turn the page, I turn. And I said, how do I know when to turn the page? He said, when I nod my head, you turn the page. I thought that's simple enough. And these are not baby pieces. This is like difficult accordion written music that he's never seen before. So he starts playing it. And of course, it's perfect. And he gets to the bottom of the page, the first measure of the last line of music on the page, and he nods his head. Now, look, there's like 8 more measures to play here, folks. He nods his head. I turn the page. He keeps playing those, and he picks up the new one on the next page. And I'm like, whoa. And he did that throughout the entire session that he played. And I was recording it. He did for me. And at the end, I said, Mario, how in the world did you do that? He goes, do what? I said, first measure, last line, nod your head. He says, well, I take a line at a time. I said, you take a line at a time? Maybe I take a measure, maybe 2 at a time. Yeah. It takes a line at a time, like 8 measures. And I said, well, my next question is, well, how did you learn to do that? He said, when I was a little boy, my dad would make me practice before he would let me go out and play with the other kids. He's like 5, 6 years old. And he said he would put a stack of music down next to me about that deep, sheet music. And he said, when you get done playing that, you can go out and play with your friends. And his dad listened. If he made mistakes, he had to go back and play that piece over again. It wasn't like he could just mess around. And he said, so I learned that the farther ahead I looked, the faster I could play it without making mistakes. And so now I'm up to one line at a time.
Wow.
Yeah, and just amazing that anyone could do that. I don't know about other musicians, but I know a lot of musicians. I know of no one else that can do that. Yeah. I'm sure there is somebody, but
yeah, sight reading, like for anyone that doesn't know like music or like reading music and what goes into it, sight reading is one of the hardest things to do.
Right.
If you're going measure by measure, right? Note by note.
Right.
Nonetheless, an entire line. That's incredible.
Yeah. Do you ever wonder who coordinates public art around New Mexico? Or how the governor's awards for excellence in the arts are chosen? Or who runs the new Artist in Residence program at the historic sites? New Mexico Arts supports these programs and provides funding for art services throughout the state, including Arts in the Military, Poetry Out Loud, the Folk Arts Program, and Arts and Cultural Districts. To learn more, visit nmarts.org. Some things you can find on the internet, and others, not so much. Putting together a publication as interesting and beautiful as El Palacio magazine is hard work, but it's well worth the effort. The articles we cover, ranging from artist profiles you can't find anywhere else, to impressive archaeological discoveries, to histories of events in New Mexico that are underrepresented in our state's archives, offer important and insightful writing about topics you definitely won't find on the internet. I've been writing for El Palacio for a long time, and now, as editor, I may be just a little biased, but if you love New Mexico, you'll love El Palacio. There's a reason we've been around for 110 years. Subscribe at elpalacio.org/subscribe. I guarantee you won't want to miss an issue. So I would just love to know, so you learned technique for playing and repair from him?
Yeah, mostly repair, but we would take, when we finished repairing, at the end of the day, he would pick up his accordion. He played both piano, chromatic accordion, and he also played button box accordion, which is the kind that Antonio plays, but he played, which is a style I play in, a Slovenian button box style accordion, German, Austrian, Bavarian, Slovenian.
Okay.
So that's in button accordions, that's what I play because that's what he played. And it's a different system.
Okay.
With a button accordion, if you push in, you push a button down for a note, and you push in, it makes one sound. But if you pull out, it makes a different sound.
Okay.
I can show you.
Yeah. You want to see that? Yeah, let's look at that.
Okay, yeah.
So if I have a button,
Yeah.
and I pull out versus push in, it's like that across the whole keyboard.
Okay.
Same button. Yeah.
Wow.
But with
Yeah.
a chromatic piano accordion or a chromatic button accordion, it's the same note in and out.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I played. I played chromatic piano accordion.
Right.
And so for a couple of years, Mario would tell me, he said, you should learn to play this button accordion. And I looked at it, I says, how could anybody play an instrument where it's a different note in and out? And he goes, it's easy. Matter of fact, he said, you could be a dummy and play one of these. And I didn't believe him, So one day after a couple of years of him gently asking me to play the button to try it, we worked in his basement, which is where my shop is. And his mother was sick. And they had this intercom system like you'd have for a baby. And she called him upstairs and he would run to take care of her. And I saw his button accordion sitting down on the floor. And I thought, I'm going to give this a try while he's not around. So I tinked around with it for maybe 15, 20 minutes. And I thought, he might be right. And so then he gave me a lesson on the button accordion, and he showed me how to play a song on 3 buttons.
Okay.
Going in and out.
Yeah.
And so from then on, I played both button and chromatic piano.
Wow. So I want to jump way forward in time now. You were an apprentice, and then decades later, what made you want to become the master on the master side of the master-apprentice
Well, I started the master-apprentice program because it's nice to have a piece of paper. I mean, I knew what I was doing. You can always learn more. I'm one that is a believer that you never are done learning. So I would learn from Mario, but then with a master-apprentice program, get a certificate that says he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And they pay the master. And Mario was as poor as a church mouse. And so I signed up for the program and I put him as the master, and I traveled back to Pennsylvania to study with him. And so then I got through the program. And then as time went on, it's not decades, but it was probably, maybe 12 years, 10, 12 years later, I was getting older. I'm still getting older. And I thought it'd be nice to pass this tradition on to someone else. So I took on a woman as an apprentice who was already helping me do some repairs, and suggested that she go through the program. So I signed her up and put her through the program. Turns out that after a couple of years, she decided that's something she didn't want to do.
Okay.
And then I was very disappointed. And I had tried a couple other people just said they were interested, and soon after they started, they lost interest. And then one day, this guy walks into my studio to get his accordion repaired, and we hit it off. And he was real excited about the workbench and tuning and looking at the insides of accordions, which he'd already peeked at before. And I thought, well, I'll give it one more try. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, then when I die, the skill dies with me. And I tried to keep it going, but it just didn't work out. But it did work out with Antonio to a very great degree beyond my expectations. He and I just clicked, and still do today. So many things that are in common with each other, our approach to doing things on the workbench, and our approach to life, and general ethics that we have all are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So then I ran him through the program, and he did it.
Antonio, I'd love to hear from you what your experience has been learning from Tony.
Well, yeah, answering that question, it's a loaded question because there's a lot that I learned from Tony, and a lot that applies not just from a technical standpoint or from repairing accordions, but from a philosophical standpoint, and also just how to approach life and problem solving. And I think for me, the obvious answer is how I met Tony was I broke a reed on an accordion, had no idea what I was doing. I actually reached out to this guy that I saw on YouTube first, and he was from Germany. The guy graciously got on a WhatsApp video call with me and tried to help me figure it out. I had no idea what I was doing. I was kind of scared to touch it. So I got in contact with the Albuquerque Accordion Club, and they told me this guy who's an engineer, that comes in handy later as well, out of Los Alamos, repairs accordions. And so I reached out to Tony, and I think at this point, Tony had been really, really busy. But, with Tony's heart and just knowing him, he, asked me, hey, you know what, just send me your reed block. I'll do the repair for you, and, we'll go from there. And so I think in that conversation, I had told Tony, and I had already been getting very interested in learning accordions. And Tony, asked me if I was serious about that. And, that conversation ended up leading into us getting into the master-apprentice program. But I say all that to say that the obvious answer is I learned how to repair accordions from not knowing what happened with that time that I broke a reed on my accordion, to being able to repair all types of accordions, different, problems that arise, and troubleshooting and problem solving. So that's the obvious answer. The second thing I think really is around, like what Tony said, around ethics. And I think when you think about ethics and integrity, I really do believe that Tony embodies that. And the reason why I say that is there's countless times that we're on the workbench and we have an accordion in front of us. And Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, a full-size accordion like this has 5,000 parts to it. And some parts are bigger parts, some parts smaller parts. And there were many times that we're working on a customer's accordion, and there's maybe a screw that's a little loose, or there's a possibility that with a tool you can scratch something on the inside. And Tony, the steps that he took to take care of other people's material was something that stood out to me, and something that I really wanted to adopt in my everyday life, in my career. And what I mean by that too is Tony had told me many, many times, like, the customer may not see a scratch on the inside of their accordion, but first do no harm. That's the very principle of integrity, is to do the right thing when nobody is looking, to do the right thing when nobody knows. And that's exactly what I consider the foundation of what our relationship was like, and the Master Apprentice program was moving with integrity. We, tightened little screws here and there and re-waxed a part of a reed block that wasn't a part of the original problem, why the accordion was sitting on the bench. But we did it because it was the right thing to do. And that player may never know, right, that was done in the shop. But the principle of it is, I think, something that we're missing in the world today, and is very rare to find in people. And so that goes to Tony accepting me as his apprentice, and to, teaching those values in that system, through the program, is something that I really cherish in everything.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah, and also Antonio had a little, and a lot of people have it. We would go to do something. This was early on in the program. We would go do something, and he'd say, well, let me do this real quick. And I just look over at him, and I thought, oh, boy, that's opened a bad door there.
Yeah.
I said, well, that usually leads to problems.
Yeah.
I said, we want to do it. We want to do it right. We want to take our time. But doing it real quick rarely, if ever, leads to a good job in anything, not just accordion repairs, but in any part of life. Understand what it is that you need to do. First, seek to understand, and then, as Davy Crockett, or at least some stories say, as Davy Crockett said, make sure you're right, then go ahead. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of all the same type of logic, same approach that we both have. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's basically stopped saying, let me do this real quick.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
Yeah, I say, let me do this real, and I'm like, I'm not going there, Tony. He's like already looking at me from across the workbench. Don't say the Q word.
Don't say that word.
Antonio?
I think what I've learned from Antonio is to value your youth, because it don't last that long. I'm 77 now, and it's things are slowing down, and my vision's getting worse, and I didn't appreciate it as much when I was around his age. And then now looking back, it's like, my philosophy has been the same throughout my life, but I didn't realize what a gift it was to have an agile body and good vision and be able to just execute things that you wanted to, which later on sometimes doesn't happen.
Yeah. So are you still running your repair shop?
Well, I'm taking care of existing customers. If someone bought an accordion from me, 5 or 10 years ago and they have something wrong with it, I'll fix it for them. But any new calls that come in, they go to him.
Okay.
And actually, even some existing customers, if they're open to it, I'll send them to him also. Because I've told my customers in the past, this accordion, I'll take care of it for you. Mm-hmm. And if I say something, that's what I do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Unless there's something major that's stopping me. So for the most part, he gets all the business now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that you said when you were coming in today that you play very different styles of music. Can you describe the styles of music that you play? And maybe, it sounds like, I don't know how many different kinds of accordions there are, but I'd be curious about how that also plays a part in the type of music you play.
Well, I can focus on the button box, right? And the types of accordions. As Tony mentioned earlier, even with the button boxes, you have different variations. You have chromatic button boxes, which are the same note as you pull out, as you push in. Then you have diatonic button boxes, and you have different styles of diatonic button boxes. I'll focus on two very common ones that you'll see here in the state of New Mexico or in the region. You usually find what we call a 2-voice button box, which is more common in norteño music, Tex-Mex music, New Mexico music. Two of the bigger brands that you'll see are Hohner and Gabinelli for those. The style of music I play is cumbia. A lot of people think I play Tex-Mex, but I don't play Tex-Mex. I play cumbia from Colombia. It's a very traditional style of cumbia colombiana that is from a town called San Jacinto, Colombia. That's essentially my favorite form of cumbia. It's the most traditional. It's just a very vibrant and very technical style of cumbia. And the accordion that I use is a button box. It looks very similar to the 2-voice, but it's actually a 3-voice. All that means is it's much brighter, and that there's 3 voices per note. So there's 3 reeds per button, essentially. And the tone is much brighter. It's a Corona 3 versus a Corona 2, which is found in norteño music. So that's what I play. Tony here, and he'll show later, has a piano, chromatic accordion. And I'll let you kind of take it on the chromatics if you like.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, most people are familiar with the piano, and that's a chromatic instrument. What does that mean? There's 12 notes in the Western world musical scale. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, right? You look, it's black and white keys. So there's 12 notes, and then after that they repeat again, but it's an octave higher. And if you think back to the old days of organs, and it's the nomenclature is still used today, there was a 6-foot pipe organ. And then if you wanted to go up an octave, there was a 12-foot pipe organ. And then you kept adding to get the different octaves. And if you look on this accordion that I brought, it has 8s and 6s on it, and 8s and 12s. And so it's telling you, well, this is this octave, that's that octave. So the 12 notes in the chromatic Western world scale allow you to play any song in any key. And you need the accompanying chords that go with that. In music, there's generally basic music, simple songs. There's 3 chords that go with them. There's the tonic, the dominant 7th, and the subdominant. And so if I look at those 3 chords, tonic, dominant 7th, and subdominant, if I pick the accordion up, the buttons on the bass are arranged in, guess what? Tonic, right next to it, dominant 7th, right below it, subdominant, right? So you pick any key you want to play in, like C. The 2 chords you need with it are right next to it. You want to play in D, go up to D. A and G are right next to that, and that's the 2 chords you need. So when most people look at a chromatic piano accordion, they see all these buttons on the bass. There's on a full-size one, there's 120. They freak out. It's like, how could you possibly figure that out, Well, there's little marks on some of them. That's a big help. But they're arranged in such a way that follows the circle of fifths. Musicians, anybody that's around that plays music, they know the circle of fifths. But they usually call them by a different nomenclature. The tonic they call 1, the dominant 7th they call 5, and the subdominant they call 4. So it's the old 1-4-5. They'll go 1-4-5. And if I say subdominant or dominant 7th, they just stare at me. They have no idea, but it's the same. It's just a different way of calling out those chords. So anyway, so any song in any key is pretty handy. And usually if you have like a singer, they'll usually sing in like A or D or whatever they sing in. And so with the piano accordion, you can accompany them. With Antonio's diatonic accordion, each row on that accordion, there's 3 rows on most of them, is a different key. G, C, F is a very common one, right? So if I take G, C, F and make that the tonic, then if I take C and make that the tonic, then G and F are on either side of it. Well, that's exactly how that accordion is laid out. He can play in those 3 keys. He can play in G, C, or F. Can he play in A? I'm sorry, folks. Right? A has 3 sharps, and he ain't going there because he doesn't have them on the accordion. Right. So they're not there. For the most part, there are some exceptions with different construction of accordions. So anyway, that's the difference between the piano chromatic and the button diatonic. There's also a button chromatic, which is the same as the piano accordion, except instead of piano keys, it has buttons. Okay. And they're black and white, same as the other one.
And what kind of genre do you play?
I'm pretty eclectic. Well, I'm Italian, so, I play the old stuff, Way Marie and, the O Sole Mio and that kind of stuff. And I move around. Currently I'm into a jazz phase where I like jazz music. And there's a certain construction of an accordion called a tone chamber, which is, if you're familiar with a mute that goes onto a cornet, changes the sound. Yeah. And the tone chamber accordion puts out a real mellow, rounded jazz type, easygoing sound. And so I've been playing tone chamber jazz recently. I also like show tunes, Zorba the Greek, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, those tunes.
I was going to ask earlier when you mentioned the 200 accordions, like why would you need that many? But it sounds like based on tunings and like what you're able to play, like maybe is that a part of the reason?
From a functional standpoint, yes. And to answer the question, yes and no, right? There's some accordions within the collection that are collector's items. They're relics. They're from different eras. Museum pieces. Wow. And there's also different sizes of accordions, right? So you have smaller keyboard accordions. You have, more full-size accordions. You have 2-row button boxes, 1-row button boxes, 4-row. You have just different styles, right? And you run into different players and different types of players that want those styles, or you just have the finds, right? Like an accordion from the 40s. And that's something you don't come across as easily these days. And so having that and being in possession of that accordion is like being in possession of a piece of history. Tony has some really cool accordions from the 1800s?
I have one. Accordions were patented, as I said, in 1829. I have one made in 1834.
Wow.
In my collection. And I have one from 1870.
Wow.
Yeah, which is all hand inlay wood. It's a beautiful piece to look at.
That's incredible.
But you ask about basically, why do you need 200 accordions?
Yeah.
Well, look, somebody comes to your shop and they want to sell an accordion. What do? I'd like that. That's nice. How much do you want for it? And then the next thing is from 150 to 151. Now you have 151. And somebody comes in next week, somebody says, I want to sell that's a nice accordion. I'd like that. So 152, So.
That's an interesting business model.
I have one story. I hope my wife doesn't get mad at me. My wife is very patient with me. She puts up with a lot. But my previous wife was not that way. And I had at that time, I think I had 150 accordions. Small collection. And she came, I was in the workshop and she came down the stairs and she was pissed off about something. And she goes, you know what? either those accordions have got to go or I go. And I looked at her and I said, I'm sorry you put it that way. That's a true story.
Wow.
We got divorced. So.
Wow.
I remember you told me about that.
Didn't mean to hurt her feelings, but
Wow. That's quite the story.
documented, yeah.
Tony, you mentioned there was a big popularity for accordion music and you grew up surrounded by it in Pennsylvania, and then that popularity waned. So I'm curious about, how popular accordion playing is currently and what the demand is for accordion repair.
Well, I'll take the demand for accordion repair. That's the easy one. It's astronomical. Once they find out that you can fix them and you do a good job on them, it's all over, folks. I mean, you're going to have as much business as you want. And I mean that. I was turning business down for a while. I said, I can't. I don't even have any room to get in my shop, let alone take another accordion in here. But no, it's over the past 15 to 20 years, it's been gaining in popularity. There's more people playing accordions than there used to be in the lull period from the 60s to pick a number, 2000s or somewhere around there. And you notice it because if you watch movies, there'll be a number of movies in the soundtrack in the movie, there'll be an accordion playing. Now, most people don't notice it, but I notice it, right? And popularity with especially out here in the Southwest with Hispanic, various forms of Spanish music. Accordion is the number one instrument used in that type of music. One thing I didn't say earlier, which might be appropriate, is that the accordions migrated from Germany to Mexico, and then from Mexico they migrated up into New Mexico and then spread out across the Southwest. And so this whole region that we're living in, especially if you have Hispanic people that live in that area, the accordion plays a large part in their lives, and they love to hear that sound.
From my experience in the time frame that I've been able to work with the accordions and repairing accordions, I've seen a lot of people recently, especially in Albuquerque in the state, coming to me asking, what's a good first accordion? What's a good beginner accordion? And a lot of people are starting to trend in that direction as well. You're seeing a lot of, known artists today who are known for, playing guitar and other styles of music that are picking up the accordion as well. And right now I can tell you I have about 6 or 7 accordions on my bench to repair. And I thought maybe I'll get 1 or 2 a month. No, it's a lot more than that. So I am definitely seeing the rotation of accordions coming to me for repair and, just kind of a resurgence in that craze, even in the short time that I've been doing it.
And they're popular across the world. Mm-hmm. Eastern Europe, they never went out of popularity there. I've had customers, the farthest one was from South Korea. He brought his accordion in. He called Hohner, wanted his accordion repaired, and they couldn't fix it. So they called me up and they sent him to me. And so I repaired this guy's accordion from South Korea. It was a tone chamber model. I've sold accordions as far as England, London, England. See, he's not known yet. Mm-hmm. He thinks 6 accordions on his workbench is a lot. I've had them. I've had them where they're piled up in my shop where I could hardly even walk into my shop. In the heyday, I was servicing the entire country, from Philadelphia to Seattle to California, and I was working at the laboratory in medium energy particle physics as a mechanical engineer at the same time. So I'd get up in the morning and I'd repair accordions in the morning. Then I'd go to work and then I'd come back at night and I'd repair accordions till I fell asleep, and then every day it was the same thing. I mean, it was at one time that place was driving me crazy.
Wow.
But yeah, because there wasn't And there still aren't that many competent repairmen around. When you have somebody like Hohner calling you up saying, would you fix this for us? And then I'd send it back to them. Then they'd send it back to their customer. You know, it's the competency just wasn't there.
And Hohner's a manufacturer.
Yeah, they're a manufacturer.
Yeah, so the manufacturers were calling you. That's
Yeah, especially with tone chamber accordion. It's a special
It's
construction, but
a little bit more complicated.
a lot more complicated.
If you are interested in the New Mexico Folk Arts Apprenticeship Program, keep your eye out for the next deadline in early January of 2027. Staff at New Mexico Arts are always happy to help artists with their application forms. Note that this is not a formal training program that comes with a certificate, and apprentices are not paired with master artists. Rather, pairs of artists apply together to work on their own time and in their own spaces with funding and resource support from the program. As Amy Mills, director of the program, says, fundamentally, it is a program that prioritizes an older way of learning, where the values and standards are based in community and the work is often done in informal settings. The master artists are experts in their fields, and we respect that and work with them on that basis. The program is managed by New Mexico Arts, the state arts agency, with support from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Creative Industries Division of the New Mexico Economic Development Department, and the New Mexico Music Commission. For more information, check out the links in our show notes. Thanks for listening. Encounter Culture is a production of the New Mexico Department of Cultural Affairs. Our producer is Andrea Klunder at the Creative Imposter Studios. This season is produced and edited by Andrea Klunder and Alex Riegler, with additional editing by Monica Brain. Our recording engineers are Colin Underleiter and Cabby at Cabby Sound Studios in Santa Fe. Technical direction and post-production audio by Edwin R. Ruiz. Our executive producer is Daniel Zillman. Thank you to New Mexico artist El Brujo de Santinava for our theme music. For a full transcript and show notes, visit podcast.nmculture.org or click the link in the episode description in your listening app. I'm your host, Emily Withnall. The New Mexico Department of Cultural Affairs is your guide to the state's entire family of museums, historic sites, and cultural institutions. From native treasures to space exploration, world-class folk art to ancient dinosaurs, our favorite way to fully explore is with the New Mexico Culture Pass. To see everywhere Culture Pass is accepted and reserve yours today, visit nmculture.org/visit/culturepass. And if you love New Mexico, you'll love El Palacio magazine. Subscribe at elpalacio.org. Thank you for listening. And if you learned something new, send this episode to a friend or share it on social media. We love celebrating the cultures of New Mexico together.